Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about Boris Ursus in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, the Red Tzar, the best legendary lord of Kislev in terms of painting the map. How successful is he in painting the map? Well, let's just say this is a turn 69 campaign over here on Legendary, I might add, as Boris Ursus. The sheer amount of ludicrous power that Boris can unlock is, simply put, preposterous, even by the standards of really powerful legendary lords. The reason is that inherently, when you're playing a Kislev campaign now, after 6.1, you might as well have another research tree. That's probably the best way to describe the new supporter system. You basically get access to things that in many other cases, and even for Kislev, would be along the lines of technologies. So for instance, you get things like Endless March, 10% campaign movement rate. But then, you gotta understand, you also have Troll Country Pathfinder, which is 5%. So you end up with a ridiculous level of power. And Boris Ursus of the Kislev Legendary Lords is in a phenomenal position to really take advantage of that power. In terms of military prowess, potentially Astankia is better. But in terms of dominating the campaign map, well, let's just say that Boris Ursus may have no equal. At least not necessarily on the level of like generating up to almost 200k income in less than 70 turns. And keep in mind, as I stress this out, I was not looking to min-max this campaign. This was actually the first campaign I played with Kislev after 6.1. But I suppose after you've learned how to min-max Kislev pre-6.1, dealing with them post-6.1 is a very different beast altogether. To give you a comparison, the only legendary lord that I've played that could come anywhere close to this sheer amount of map dominance would be Grombrindle of the Dwarves. And one of the things that's carrying Grombrindle in his campaign is his capability of guaranteeing confederation with other Dwarf legendary lords. So if Belegar or Thorgrim have taken a lot of territory, you can guarantee that confederation and really achieve a lot on the campaign map. But it is because of that confederation. So let's take a look at the kind of benefits Boris Ursus has in his campaign from turn 1. Because this is the key aspect. It's not just the fact that Boris is very strong, it's that a lot of the benefits he has are available from the very first turn of his campaign. So right from the start, considering the supporter situation, you start with 30 supporters for both the Patriarchy and the Ice Court. So both the Orthodoxy and Ice Court, 30 supporters. And you have one of the best ways of gaining supporters for both Ice Court and Orthodoxy, because every battle against Chaos is going to generate supporters for both of them. So if I go over here and fight this battle, I'll be gaining supporters of both of them. Very importantly for Boris Ursus, that you do have your initial enemies being Chaos, so you do end up with this sacrifice captives option, which gives you devotion, but very crucially gives you 10% campaign movement range for his army. And you can kind of start this momentum going. See, campaign movement range is one of the strongest benefits that you can have in a campaign because it allows you to do just a lot more stuff faster. Now, Boris does have a weak starting province that is spread apart. That is a weakness, but he's really good at traversing it. That is a benefit. But if we look at the supporters, I've gained 10 supporters for both Orthodoxy and Ice Court. You also start with one of the best starting armies in the game, or one of the best starting armies in terms of auto-resolve potential in the game at the very least, if not even combat potential. The reason behind this is you obviously have Boris himself, but you have a Patriarch that can give you casualty replenishment from turn 1. Castalton has a similar benefit, Katrin and Astankia don't. But you do have these Sargard, you do have these Warbear Riders, you do have these Armor Cossars. To give you an equivalent, imagine if, let's say, Scarbrand, right? Let's just go with that, because we're going to make that comparison. Imagine if Arbol or Scarbrand started with 2 units of Chosen, 2 units of Chaos Warriors, and 2 units of Chaos Knights with Lances. That's the kind of equivalent that we're talking about here. And a Casualty Replenishment Hero. They don't exactly start with that kind of combat potential. It's not necessarily too far removed, but yeah, suffice to say, Boris's starting army is, simply put, freaking absurd. And that's just the starting army, the initial situation with supporters, the gain of supporters. You have a kind of situation over here where you can start dominating the supporter race far earlier than Astanka. Astanka does find chaos as well, but she has a 1-turn penalty, because in order for her to get to Plesk, to Kislev, you need to wait 1 turn. It does work out, don't get me wrong, in her campaign, but there's other things that do start playing a role over here. Settlements and chaos wasteland climates gain additional devotion, so that is going to give you extra control in these provinces. So you have an easier access to invocations, be it province invocations or army invocations. Then you have diplomatic relations plus 30 with the Ice Court, 5% campaign movement range. So he can gain extra campaign movement range by fighting chaos. You're looking at having with Boris Ursus 15% campaign movement range pretty quickly. Now, granted, it's not going to last forever. It's only 1 turn. Actually, I think that's a bit bugged out, really. So it's saying 1 turn. Okay, regardless of that, irrelevant aspect. You do gain a construction cost of minus 30% for garrison and religion buildings, or religion buildings particularly affecting Orthodoxy shrines. The most significant benefit is you do get a construction time minus 1 turn for provincial capital and settlement buildings. So that means, even though you start with the tier 1 settlement, not that the Stanka, Katrin, or Kostaltin have a better situation in that respect, they don't. Even though you start with a tier 1 settlement, you can grow these settlements faster than all the other Kislev legendary lords. That is a pretty damn big deal in a campaign. Then you have recruit rank benefits for Warbear Riders. But as well as immunity to Chaos Corruption and Chaos Waste Attrition. So you're just really that much better in terms of dealing with the Chaos Wastes. But there is more. That is just the start of what Boris can do. My recommendation is, if you're playing this campaign, here's what you want to do. You want to get either a courthouse or an Orthodoxy shrine in your initial settlement. You want to use the load save character system to get an ice switch. Specifically one that would have Logisticon and Architect would be really useful. So start any other campaign, save one with these kind of traits. So Glacial Blaster, Logisticon, and Architect, and it will give you a bit of a benefit. The campaign, by the way, I showed you did not use this. Well, I did have ice switches, but they were using the old traits, which, yeah, there's some benefits in that, but there's also downsides. Anyway, and you also can get a Frost Maiden hero, again, those kind of benefits. I strongly recommend you do so in his campaign. And then you recruit a combination of Kislevite warriors and Cossars. I'd probably get some regular Cossars for range capability early on, but actually being able to recruit Kislevite warriors if you own Shadow's Change is a benefit, because you might be able to deal with Archeon very, very early on in your campaign as Boris Ursus. And that is benefit number 2, significant benefit, or free really, beyond supporters faction effects. Because when you can eliminate Archeon very quickly in your campaign, you will remove the threat, he doesn't get as much experience, you can fight him early on, completely eliminate his faction. And keep in mind, dealing with Archeon is something you're going to be dealing with every Kislev campaign, including Astanka. Assuming you decide to move Astanka to Kislev, which by the way you should. I'll make a video on her a bit later on. So those are some benefits, but it gets a bit crazier once you start talking about a unique commandment and his special skill line. Now, beyond all of that, when you're taking over this province, and you can do this pretty quickly, you can you can get one rebellion after another. I actually got 2 rebellions, and over here I'm very, very close to 100 supporters. It's saying that I didn't gain any supporters here, but yeah, I'm very close to having one tier 1 for both Court and Orthodoxy. And I've already unlocked Endless March because you get an event very early on that allows you to pick who you're going to support, either Orthodoxy, Ice Court, or a neutral option. I'd recommend picking either Ice Court or Orthodoxy. There's no reason, as far as I see it, to go balanced initially unless you just don't want to upset things. But it doesn't really matter in that respect. So you can get Endless March very quickly. Or you could get Dominion. Resource buildings have no construction cost, or construction cost reduction for infrastructure buildings, or construction cost for buildings that raise support for the Great Orthodoxy. So there are some really powerful benefits over there with regards to supporters. That's available to everyone. What is unique for Boris Ursus is this commandment, by order of the Tzar. So what this commandment does, it's ridiculously good. Keep in mind, you are going to be dealing with chaos corruption in your initial province, or in general in this campaign. You have a commandment that, yes, it does decrease your income very early on, but early on in your campaign, you won't necessarily care too much about it. It's later on that you will obviously not want to use this, but this gives you 10 devotion, minus 10 corruption, and gives you a ward save when fighting against chaos. So you have a very strong defensive benefit, and also a benefit that helps you push this devotion. And the reason that's significant is beyond the invocations for armies and settlements, you can also eliminate chaos climate penalties. Another factor to take into consideration of Boris Ursus is once you take the Howling Citadel, you could actually march over here against Daniel, the Demon Prince. Why would that matter? The reason that would matter is because if you do so, if you eliminate the Demon Prince, his defeat rate boosts your diplomatic relations with Kislev, which in turn allows you to confederate the Kislev Legendary Lords. You can't do so with Ostange, but think of Prague, think of Kastaltin, think of Catherine. Those are the three factions you're going to be able to do. Kastaltin can get, obviously, the Brotherhood of Bear in Drazina Enclave. Catherine usually can only get Drazina Enclave beyond Prague, of course. But the sheer diplomatic benefit is really good for Boris Ursus. But it gets even better. You have the skill Resettler, which gives you a growth benefit in all provinces and a no colonization cost. And look at that. There are 2 ruined settlements. So what you want to do is come over here, take the Frozen Landing, take Yetkich, get those provincial capitals built, build a barracks over here in Yetkich, sell that to Prague. You might just confederate them right there and then. You could also sell the Frozen Landing to Malachi, or sell it to Prague first off, help you with your confederation by improving diplomatic relations, and then sell it to Malachi, which in turn would give you support from Malachi as an ally against Arbol. And crucially, unlock that sweet, sweet artillery that dwarves can provide, because one of the problems that Kislev has is, outside of Little Groms, they don't have artillery, especially early game artillery, so that is a very powerful benefit. But it gets crazier with Boris Ursus. With this special skill line, there are certainly some very powerful benefits here, like War Bear Riders, army benefits, armor for Tzar Guard. So, like, when I say that these guys are chosen, I'm not freaking joking. Like, 20 armor for Tzar Guard is ridiculous. So, 110 armor. I think chosen do have more, but you're not really that far off necessarily. But then there's some skills where things start getting crazy. So you get the Great Reclaimer. This gives you +2 population surplus for newly captured settlements. To understand how powerful this skill is, granted, it only works for Boris's army. You know, the one that can traverse the map fastest, because it also gains a 10% campaign movement range. To understand how powerful this is, the dwarves have this as a research, obviously faction-wide in their case, but that's the kind of research that takes 30 turns. You can get it much faster, because you only need to get rank 12. Save your skill points and you can get rank 12. So within 10 turns of a campaign, that's pretty crazy, but it doesn't stop there. You get Glorious Charge for your entire army. How ridiculous is Glorious Charge? Well, Kislev is so ridiculous in multiplayer that they are literally banned from a lot of multiplayer tournaments because of their ridiculousness. Like, one of the reasons they're banned is because of By Our Blood is just overpowered as hell in multiplayer situations, and Glorious Charge is also pretty damn broken. But Glorious Charge is for Griffin Legion and Wing Lancers. When you start applying that for the entire army, crucially on Warbearer Riders, yes, things get pretty crazy, but that is not all. You then have Khan King. This gives you 30 diplomatic relations with Kislev, 8 devotion in a province, and reduces enemy leadership by 7. That is insane. Furthermore, unlike Astankia, Catherine, Castalton, actually Catherine and Castalton are far worse in this respect. Astankia is better, but she has to fight quest battles. You get items by just completing objectives that just require you to basically take over settlements and fight battles. And when you gain these items, you're gaining a good amount of money as well when you're completing these objectives. Obviously, the items themselves are pretty solid, but it is the amount of money that you're gaining through this that makes it worth it. And the set bonus is request army cost reduced by 20%. This is absurd when you start combining all of these things together. So in summary, you have a legendary lord that can rebuild ruined settlements faster than anyone else, can traverse the map faster than anyone else, has a major diplomatic benefit with Kislev, partly because he can get that Daniel defeat trait, and he can farm it with other lords as well. It's not like only he can get it. No, you can get it on other lords. Sure, you can argue, oh, but other lords can do it as well. Not as fast as Boris, won't matter as much in other campaigns as it can in his campaign. Or you can just turn around and just deal with Archeon very, very quickly, who, for instance, is just raiding this territory. Not quite sure what's going on with that. But it is a ridiculous situation in every single respect that actually has significant importance in a campaign. Boris wins. You can abuse the bloat save character system, but you don't need to. You absolutely don't need to. You never needed to abuse it. It's just an extra benefit. But when you combine what you can cheese or what you can do naturally, it just ends up being a freaking ridiculous, overpowered campaign. Kislev in particular is the kind of race right now where you have a lot of income modifiers because of resources that end up making them absurdly strong, like 3% income from markets. So yes, Boris Ursus is an insanely powerful legendary lord. Costin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more.